this activity module, we're going to be focusing on how to drive your sales team into always behaving above the line. Now, that being the case, I'm going to delve deeper into this whole concept of above and below the line behavior and really why it is so foundational to your sales team's success moving forward. So just for a moment, let's just take a look at your current selling environment. And I recognize that today, more than ever, selling in this environment is a tough gig. If you take a look at the rapid change and continually shifting goalposts, added to the fact that you work in an environment where competition gets tougher every day and where your customer is more informed than ever before, the question that you have to ask yourself is, are your salespeople really at the top of their game? Do they have the capabilities to compete and win in this current environment? I mean, if we take a look at how technology has made it more difficult than ever before to get to speak to prospective buyers, and the fact that you have to now deal with and navigate your way through an absolute minefield of multiple decision makers where it just takes so long to get someone to make a decision. And then you add to the fact that in many respects your products lack true product differentiation, something that you can hang your hat on, something that you can set yourself apart from your competition with. On top of all of that, you now add to the mix that everyone you talk to is either on a limited budget or have no budget at all. And this really makes it a tough job to be out there selling today. So when you add all of these challenges, as well as continual product upgrades and increased revenue demands from your management, and the fact that, if we're really honest, our salespeople are using outdated sales technique, it's no wonder that you often feel like you're just chasing your tail. And as I said in my report of the 7 most costly mistakes that sales managers make, which hopefully by now you've read, over the last 8 to 10 years, if we're really honest with ourselves, then let's acknowledge the truth that, in fact, our salespeople really haven't had to sell. Because just as in any boom market, many sales are not necessarily made because we were so good at selling, but all too often we happen to be at the right place at the right time and we just picked up the business. Our customers were really buying rather than us having to go out there and create sales. Sure, I've no doubt that there have been instances where your salespeople have gotten out there and manifested the business. But come on, let's be honest. In the majority of sales situations where sales were made, it was more a question of timing and good fortune than sales ability. The bare facts are that, in fact, over the last decade, many successful salespeople have found their success because of their willingness to be proactive and take action. And add to the fact that they probably hustled more than their peers or competitors. However, again, if we're really honest with ourselves, this emphasis, if you like, on action didn't necessarily make them good at selling. Rather, what it did was ensure that they were knocking on the door of opportunity more often. So now that we're in the cradle of a harsh economy where the easy sales have simply dried up, those few sales opportunities that are on the table are being snapped up by those salespeople who are skilled at the game of selling. Now, the good news is really that your competition are struggling with the exact same issues that you are. The bad news is that the future is not likely to get any easier. So one of the best places that you can begin your sales turnaround effort is to begin by turning around the mindset of your sales team. Selling is like a sport. It's like life. More often than not, it's a mental game where he or she who has the right headspace wins. It's a fundamental aspect of your role as a sales leader that you make self-responsibility and playing above the line a cornerstone of your team culture. Why? Well, as one of my very good friends and mentors, Pastor Rowan Dredge, who has made a study of this concept of living above the line, as he says in an article written for a book that was put out by an organization called Thought Leaders, he says that being above the line means that both individuals as well as teams can engage more freely, respond more enthusiastically, and contribute more meaningfully to the task at hand. So how much better would your sales team be delivering today if they were engaged more freely, and if they were responding more enthusiastically, and if they were contributing more meaningfully, not just to their role, but to the team, to the marketplace, to your organization, to your products, to yourself, to the challenging environment that you operate in, to what it means to be a professional salesperson today. So with that in mind, let's unpack this thing called playing above the line. So as we've already discussed, in the highly competitive and sales work environment, today companies need proactive salespeople, as well as other employees, who know how to self-manage. What companies need today is they need salespeople who are both proactive and who are willing to take ownership as well as responsibility for their actions. And so these are the empowered people that resolve issues and problems that cross their desk without having to pass blame or deny or make excuses or justifications or even worse, accuse other people or circumstances. These resourceful behaviors are what we call above-the-line behaviors. And so typically above-the-line behaviors are those of the self-responsible hero, if you like. And these are characterized by ownership and accountability and responsibility, being positive and proactive. These people are future-focused, as opposed to, in many organizations, people look to blame someone else when issues and problems arise. So instead of looking to see what they can do to move things forward and achieve a positive outcome, "It's not my fault" is the most common refrain from people who don't want to take responsibility for the situation which they find themselves. And so it's always someone else's fault. And these people operate below the line. And sadly, it's these very same people that have not yet arrived in a place in their lives where they understand the concept and the meaning of that old adage, "It's not what happens to us, but rather it's what we do about what happens to us that makes the biggest difference in how things turn out." It's a bit like that old quote, "Things always turn out for the best for those that make the best of the way that things turn out." In other words, people who work and live above the line get that whilst we cannot control the events that occur in our lives, we can always control our response to those events. So below the line salespeople are very quick to accept all the credit for their successes. They are also in turn just as quick to divest themselves of the responsibility for things that go wrong. And we call these behaviors the behaviors of the victim. These are the below the line behaviors, and these are typically characterized by blame, denial, excuses. People just react, they justify, they point fingers, make accusations, fault finding, and they're always looking back. So things are always better back then. So in order for us to implement an above-the-line mindset, to create an above-the-line culture where our people operate from a place of ownership and accountability and responsibility and proactivity, we first need to understand the very clear difference between responsibility and accountability. So let me ask you this. What do you think is the difference between accountability and responsibility?